Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt, and this is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit, your beacon of freedom and the American way of life. Tune in every Mondays for a new episode as we dive into the world of liberty and what makes our country great. All right, boys and girls, welcome back. This is Eric and Matt here with LLP, and I hope you're all having a great week. Here we are.
Back for the spiciness.
Here
Another
with Bell
Monday.
Zone.
Yes, another Monday here to get you through your workday.
I hope so. Maybe it might get you through the insanity of life, or it might just lead us all off a cliff, too. I mean, who knows?
This is true.
What direction we're going here. I hope everybody's having a great week and had a good weekend, and really enjoy LLP, and I appreciate all of you who've supported Matt and I in our endeavors. Soon I will end up having Matt on some of my content on the YouTube channel as well. We'll have him making some guest appearances on some gun gripes and 5 guns. So expect that. That'll be fun once we can get around to hitting up some episodes. Today's show, we're going to be discussing who are the immigrants? Who are the actual immigrants? Who are they?
It's a great question.
Yeah, and it's crazy. We weren't even really going to cut a show about this today, but Matt and I just kind of got down the rabbit hole of discussion of, you know, how everyone is so up in arms over this immigration issue. And it is a really hot button subject for a lot of people. And there are many people primarily on the right. Now, there are people on the left side of the camp that feel this way as well. But I would say this point of view is primarily a right-wing leaning viewpoint, is that, you know, hey, we voted for Trump to you know, enact all of this mass deportation of legal immigrants and to essentially purge them from our country and everything like that. And that seems to be the kind of popular talking point and the popular viewpoint of many on the right. And look, I'm on the right. Okay. So, you know, for me, I consider myself to be obviously extremely right wing, maybe too much right wing for the average right wing person, but I'm very right wing. But I think there's some nuance. I think there's some balance and some nuance to the conversation that sometimes it gets left on the floor. You know, it sort of gets left on the editing room floor when it comes to the talking points that are perpetuated by, you know, many of these talking heads and these pundits within the media and popular social media influencers, or whatever the hell you even want to call it. Again, like going back to our podcast where we talk about influencers, I think that's such a strange thing. It's like, if my value that I add to the conversation is simply that I influence people, I don't know, to spend money a certain way or to purchase a product, which of course we have sponsors on the show. So, I mean, I guess I am an influencer to some degree, but I've always found that to be kind of strange. It's like, if that's the value they see in it, but these influencers, they talk about, like, almost in this hateful way, like how much they just detest the idea of immigrants even being here. And then it begins to paint this sort of picture, Matt, that not only are they against illegal immigration and people coming here in a way they're not supposed to, but that they seem to have a problem with immigrants, period.
Yes.
And you know, what's your thoughts on that? I know we already talked about it a little bit, but we're going to kind of paraphrase. We talked a little bit before the show, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's always like immigration in and of itself is always, it's a touchy subject because, you know, I'm an American. I was born here. So for me, my parents weren't. My parents immigrated here, or my mom immigrated here. My dad was American. So for me, you know, I had to, you know, see my family go through it the legal way. And it's like long, it's hard, it's difficult, and you know, it's expensive. And I get it. There's people that they can't shoulder the burden of the cost, or they, you know, quite frankly, don't want to go through the process. And those, I don't believe have any grounds to say that they shouldn't have to do it. I think that everybody should be vetted when they come into the U.S. And I think there's two sides of the coin. There's, you know, the left and the right. The right says, hey, we don't want any immigrants. The left says, you know, let them come in. I'm more in the middle. I think that, you know, we're a nation built upon immigrants, but we have to respect our borders. And we also have to make sure that the immigrants that we're letting in aren't murderers, aren't rapists, aren't, you know, criminals. It takes a long time. And that's the thing about, you know, bureaucracy. It takes a long time. Look at, I'm going to use the VA as an example. Look, you have 80,000 employees that work at the VA just to service U.S. veterans. Mm-hmm. Look at the IRS. They had to hire X amount of, agents to try to service the tax code. Now imagine trying to vet, 600,000 people a day. It's not possible. You have to slow it down. It's going to take a long time, but to me, that's the only way to do it right. You have to make sure that you're not letting in the people you don't want into our country.
Yeah. I think that there certainly is a danger in a society resting on their laurels. And I respect and admire what this country was built on and the way it was built and the values that were instilled into even our founding documents and just the founding idea of how this country was even conceived. I respect the morals and values that went into that thought process, into why we even came here to begin with. And my family are also immigrants, but we came here in 1630. So I'd say the mid 1630s, and not with, not to grandstand or get into some position of, it's not about, who's been here the longest or who came when. It's just more about, the point is, we all came here at some point, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, obviously someone lived here long before us, and maybe even before them, somebody lived here long before those people, right? I mean, the Native Americans as we know it today, a lot of them, came, up from South America, up from Mexico and that area, but also came across, I think during the last ice age, they said that there was a land bridge that went across the Bering Sea. Right. Apparently there's a shallow area up there that at one point in Earth's geology or whatever, that there was a land bridge. And a lot of the Native American Indians have heritage that is shared with Siberia, like what we would know as just modern day, I don't know, rural Siberians up in Russia. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of odd to think that at one point, I mean, people were just people and they were going wherever they could to follow the game and crops and resources and fertile lands and water and to avoid confrontation with other tribes. And, it was very much just, hey, we're going to go wherever we can not have to compete for resources with other people as much, right? Where are the lands fertile? Where can we grow crops easily? Where can we farm? Where can we hunt? Where can we have shelter? Where can we have water? I mean, those were the basic needs. There wasn't social media. It was people who were ingrained in a day-to-day ritual of survival that meant life and death. And if you didn't do your job right, your whole family would die, or your whole tribe would die, or two tribes would come and take you over. I mean, so life was much more hectic and dangerous back in those days when we're talking, like, I guess, whatever you want to call it, Mesoamerica or whatever the technical term for that is. But when you're talking long before Europeans ever came to America, this place was pretty chaotic, even in its own. And even those people, those tribes, those Indian tribes, where we always talk about the Native Americans and how, oh, well, you stole the Native Americans' land and stuff like that. I get that argument. I understand, because literally I understand how they feel. Like, yes, Europeans came here and kicked them off their land. Like, I get it. But they were also very savage and tribal against each other as well. I mean, like, there was nothing stopping them from taking over a weaker tribe and trying to enslave a weaker tribe, or just outright destroy them and take their lands or push them off their land. So they were doing the same thing to each other. It just, yes, I understand the sort of scrutiny of, well, when the shoe's on the other foot, it sure does hurt, right? Like, I get that. I'm not trying to say that it's right or wrong. Now, the American government really treated the Indians like shit. They really did.
They did.
They treated the Native Americans like absolute crap. And I don't agree with that. I think it's very terrible what the American government did to the Native Americans. I think it's terrible. But I consider myself a Native American. I mean, like, okay, do I look the part? No, I'm not. But I mean, my family's been here since 1630. I mean, at what point do I get to say, well, maybe I'm Native? This is my home. This is all I've ever known, right? There was a point that some Indian woke up one day and said, this is all I've ever known. And I could never imagine looking over this land and thinking that it will never not be ours to enjoy and be the stewards of and pass on to future generations. I mean, there's a point in a person's life where they think, okay, I'm going to die. I'm going to die here. I'm going to be put in this ground, and this is all I'm ever going to know. And that's okay for that to be reality. And think about, like earlier, Matt, we were talking about like the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans. I mean, look how long those cultures have been around, right? The nuance of the situation is, do you think that any of those people, Matt, would ever in a million years picture themselves to be immigrants in any way? Who's the immigrant? Again, back to the title of the podcast. Who's the immigrant?
Yeah, I mean,
who's more of an immigrant? Europeans, us, or some other cultures in the world who've been there thousands of years?
Yeah, and their civilization, I'm going to call it, has BC after it. So it's like, if you're from like a period from a civilization that has BC in the name, you've been there a while.
Yeah.
And America as a country is nowhere near that. I think 400 or 500 years.
We are a relatively young experiment, Matt.
And I'm glad you brought up, with the Native Americans about, how savage it was, because even then they had borders within their own countries, and they had to respect those borders. They were imaginary lines, they were invisible lines, and they knew exactly where they could go. They said, hey, we cannot go past this. That is not our land. And they respected that for the most part.
Some didn't.
Yeah, some didn't. But for those that are in America, it says, hey, we need to let people across the border. That's not how it works. Like, you have to respect our boundaries. You have to respect our borders, and we have to do our part to make sure that, everything is good.
If we're going to let people into our tribe,
yes,
we want to make sure they're not people who are going to poison the tribe from within. They're not going to poison the well. They're not going to be a bad apple in the batch. Like, they're not going to hurt us. Like, you obviously don't want to bring people into your country who are going to cause you harm, who are going to cause you economical harm, physical harm, moral harm. There are many ways that a person can poison the well.
Well, it's just crazy because, you'll watch the news and you see the riots and the protests in LA, and you see a bunch of people, what is it? Like they called it the No Kings protests. And you see just everybody out there waving every single flag except the American flag. And I'm sitting here watching these protests. I'm like, all right, I see this country, I see this country, I see this country's flag, but I don't see a single American flag. Not for a while. They got smart and they switched to the American flag after they started getting a lot of attention, because they realized the optics of that looking very bad. So they were like, no, we need to, they started handing out American flags, because they were like, no, we don't want to see all these other country flags advocating for America, because they're not Americans. Mm-hmm. So when I see that lets me know that those people haven't assimilated, which is the backbone, the basis of coming to America, of being an American immigrant. It was like, hey, you come over here and you assimilate, and you now are an American. You follow the American, the American culture. And I remember, when my grandmother became an American citizen, she was Japanese, Korean. So just to give you guys a little bit of background about my grandmother, she's Korean, but she was taken to Japan during the whole conflict. So she actually was raised in Japan, in Okinawa, as a Korean woman. And after the whole conflict, she went back to Korea, but she never really felt, Korean, because you had been assimilated into Japanese culture.
Which, to be fair, as a type of culture, is very consuming and exacting.
Yeah.
The Japanese are very precise on how they like things to be done, and they're accepting of people, but at the same time, like, you're going to speak their language, you're going to follow their customs, you're going to follow their rules, and if you don't, they're very quick to just set you aside, and they're very proud in that way. Like, they want people to be like them. Like, if you live in Japan, you're going to speak Japanese. You're going to follow their customs.
Well, so just and I'll get back to the main point, but I'm glad you brought that up, because in Korea and Japan, people praise Japan and Korea for being a great place to go and visit, and they're so safe and they're so clean. they're also racist, like extremely racist. And
but you'll never know it.
Well, you will, because where else in America? Tell me anywhere in America where you can go and they can refuse you service for not being American. It doesn't exist. But if you go to Japan, if you go to Korea, they will straight up have signs on the door that says no foreigners.
Really?
Yes, 100%. If you have tattoos, any tattoos, you can't go to certain establishments.
Oh boy.
You can't use the bathhouses.
Oh.
But most importantly, if you are a foreigner in Japan or Korea or a lot of other Asian countries, they will tell you they will refuse service. And they have the right to do that. That is their country. If that's the way they want to play it, that's the way they want to play it. But at the same time, there's people that are saying this is a great country. How can they be so great if the root and the basis of their culture is based on denying service to foreigners?
Yeah.
Imagine doing that in America. You go to a restaurant and they go, "No, we're not gonna serve you because you're not American."
You brought up an idea earlier, and I go back to this thought that you made me have about the optics of the No Kings protests, whatever you want to call it, riots. Well, let's just call it freaking riots. That's what
call
it is,
what
right?
it is.
Whatever it is. That idea and how they were, waving around every single flag but ours. But then once they found that they had the political capital and the political wind in their sails, rather, that they started handing out American flags. And isn't it so crazy how an idea will sort of hijack something and ride its coattails and create its own idea within an idea? And isn't that terrible to be a wolf in sheep's clothes for them to go, oh, well, we got to hand out American flags now, to make it seem like average Americans are on board with all of this.
Yep.
And it is crazy how in history so many movements have been hijacked in that way. And I think that long-standing, long-term Americans who've been here for many generations, like my family has, and I'm not saying that makes me more mutually exclusively, able to make this argument versus someone who's maybe been here a generation or two, or maybe as a first-time immigrant. My girlfriend was just naturalized last year. She's great, and I tell you what, she's one of the most American freaking people you ever meet. I mean, she is based as hell. And, she's from South Brazil. I mean, down there, they don't play around. Like, you can walk out your front door and get murdered. Like, down there, you have to be a survivor. And she definitely has that sort of, that mentality of being, kind of, hardcore.
Yeah.
And I like that about her. And I think that it's just crazy how so many people on my side of the camp, let's just say someone who's, even if, no matter how long you've been here, let's just say someone who considers himself just, I don't know, a multi-generational American, for lack of a better term. Yeah, it's easy to look and say, well, what are we really worried about? I think people are just generally worried about not wanting their culture hijacked, right? Mm-hmm. And you were talking about how when you assimilate to a different culture, like say one of the guys I follow on Instagram, he's one of the gunners at one of the castles there. And he does all kind of black powder gunnery and all the proper gear, like the, kind of early, late samurai gear where they were still using black powder matchlocks. And he assimilated to the culture. He was in the UK, served in the, their military in Afghanistan and moved to Japan. And of course, he speaks Japanese, assimilated to their culture. When you look at assimilation and then you look at it from the American side, okay, someone immigrates to America and what do you see, right? Okay, if a Chinese family comes to America, they open up a Chinese restaurant or they have a business, or there's always like a little section of every major city that's Chinatown, right?
Yeah.
There's always a little Chinatown. There's always a little Koreatown. There might be a little German town. There might be a Brazilian town or a little area, right? What do Americans do? Do they say, oh, screw your culture. You have to come here and eat cheeseburgers and French fries and screw your culinary wants and your cultural wants? No. America is this really crazy and interesting mixing basket of different cultures. And part of that assimilation process is we accepting who you are. And hey, we're not asking someone to change who they are, to change what their culture is and their favorite foods and their religion. is not even that. So like Americans are super laid back. Like we're not asking anyone to change who they are. You know, hey, you believe what you believe, you like what you like. We enjoy that. I think that a lot of Americans, I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I speak for myself for sure when I say that I think it's awesome to go to a Mexican restaurant and have a little Mexican lady in the back preparing my freaking food for me. You know, I like going to an Indian restaurant and getting some Indian cuisine and knowing that some grandma's back there making it, or Italian or Chinese or Korean barbecue, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to be able to share in other people's culinary culture. I mean, what's wrong with that? For people to, you know, hey, they know their lane, they know what they're good at, they love it, they run a business, let them run a business. Yeah, who cares? Let them do their thing. I don't have a problem with that at all. I just think as long as they come here and they vote sensibly and they vote in a way that, you know, doesn't try to like, you know, circumvent or curtail the rights of the people who already live here, who cares? Let them do what they want. Before we get too much further in the show, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor of today's show, and that's Allegiance Gold. You ever notice how gold doesn't get much airtime until the system starts to shake? Well, here's what nobody's talking about. Starting July 1st, Basel III global banking rules classify gold as a Tier 1 asset, the same level as cash or U.S. Treasuries. That's huge. It means central banks will now treat gold as the highest quality form of capital. They're not doing this for fun. They're preparing for something. If gold is good enough for the world's most powerful banks and governments, why wouldn't it be good enough for you to protect your retirement? This may be the moment we've all been waiting for. Gold could reach levels we've never seen before. Whether you've got 5K or 5 million to safeguard, now is the time to act. I've seen plenty of gold companies advertise and come and go. But I chose to partner with Allegiance Gold because they actually care. They care about pricing, about integrity, and about doing the right thing by their clients. They make it simple to move part of your 401k, IRA, or savings into real physical gold and silver. As a veteran, you may even qualify for up to $5,000 in free silver. Call 844-790-9191 or visit allegiancegold.com/veterans. That's 844-790-9191 or allegiancegold.com/veterans. All right. Smart, simple, and secure. Call today and get your future solidified for you. Nothing more solid than some gold, baby.
Veterans, jump on that. That's $5K.
$5,000 worth of silver. Well, I imagine what the buy-in would be for that. And you probably have to convert, 20, 30 grand. But
well, let's see.
I mean, hey, gold is a very viable long-term asset. It's something that always intrinsically either stays the same value or always increases in value. I can't think of a single time that gold as an asset. Silver has its ups and downs. It has its peaks and valleys. But gold has kind of consistently been on the come up.
Oh, yeah.
For years. And it's just such an intrinsically useful thing as a trading commodity. And it has been for centuries. I mean, but anyway, kind of getting back into the context of the show, the assimilation idea that you came up with earlier, it struck with me because I think that most Americans, they don't want people to change who they are. They don't want people to come here and just assimilate in the way that, well, you have to go to the barbecues and church with us and, do every little thing that I don't know, your stereotypical American would do. They don't even expect that. Mm-hmm. They just expect for people to come here and just not try to drastically change what this place is.
I think that's a huge thing, is not trying to change your new home to what your old home was. And, before we get too far along, I wanted to get back to my grandmother, because for those that are listening, might say he never got back to it. And I want to hear the end of the story. The end of the story is that as soon as she got her citizenship, she was so happy. She was so proud. And then she made it a point to make sure to celebrate those American holidays. Like she was like, oh, Thanksgiving. She's a Japanese Korean, but she loved Thanksgiving because, it's just something that it's what Americans do, right? You're celebrating like America. 4th of July. Like those are the types of things like, yeah, she didn't really completely understand, but she knew that like, that's what Americans do. Like we're here to celebrate 4th of July, Thanksgiving. She was already a Christian. So it's like Christmas, it didn't matter what country it was Christmas. But that's what you used to see, those people getting that citizenship, being so proud and doing things that they didn't do before that were American, they were classic Americana culture. Like, oh, this is what we do in America. So,
yeah.
And that, and, you know, to your point, that's what you're starting to see now is going the opposite way. People from other countries are coming over. And I hate to say it because I saw it driving through a city on my way home. And this is, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's anything bad, but you're driving and you see like these food carts on like the intersection and they're kind of like run down, but people are like slinging food out of a food cart and it just looks bad, right? And I'm like, it kind of looks like the scene in Sicario where they're at the border and like you see the people walking between cars trying to sell like random stuff like balloons and flowers. And that's what it looked like. This intersection, it was just people walking up and down, like selling random accoutrements. And I'm like, interesting. This looks like, you know, this is probably what you're used to. This is probably what you did to make money in your country. So then when you get to this country, you figure you're going to do the same thing. That's what you don't want to happen. You want to do other stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It seems like I was going to say something. I forgot. I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say. When it comes to, I was going to mention, so the culture shift, like the whole, you know, experiencing someone else's culture when they come to your country. You know, I wasn't aware of like some of the odd things. Well, not really odd things, but just different things that like the Brazilians do. And, you know, of course, my girlfriend's from Brazil. So, you know, Bruna, you know, she turned me on to these like truffles they make, like these chocolate truffles you make.
Oh,
they're pretty good.
Dude, yes.
So we make these truffles and the way they do hot dogs is really weird. I think I might have talked about it before, but like the hot dogs, they put like spaghetti sauce on them. It's like a hot dog with spaghetti sauce and like these weird like little onion crumbles or like potato crumbles, and they put like peas and corn on a hot dog and they eat it like and at first I thought, all right, what the heck is this? But then I was like, damn, this is pretty freaking good. And they put ketchup on pizza. Which I always thought that was kind of strange.
That's kind of 4D chess with the peas and corn on a hot dog because you're getting your vegetables in like at the same time. You're making it a whole meal.
Yeah, and they have this like disgusting gaucho tea, this green tea that they drink in this weird little cup with this funky little straw with a spoon on it thing. It's like a spoon with a filter, and this like kind of weird like gaucho tea, and it's like the worst tasting tea you could ever drink. And
Tell us how you really feel.
Right. But I think they just sit around and like, it's a manly thing. Like, you know how like we'll drink a black coffee, like the more disgusting and syrupy it is, like the more manly you are. It's like for them, it's like, they know it's awful, but it's like, but they're just sitting there just having their tea together. Yep. I don't know. There's just something about that that's just kind of cool. You know?
Who can drink it with a straight face?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not meant to be good. It's meant to be completely awful. And it's not, and you know, but if that's part of the culture, it's kind of cool. Yeah. It's this interesting little cup.
Dude.
It's like a gourd. It's really neat.
Those truffles, I know exactly what you're talking about. They are so freaking good, man.
Yeah.
And they come in like
I know how to make them now.
But they come in like 3 different flavors. I like the peanut one, like peanut butter. It's like almost like a Reese's cup, but it's like, it's really good. So I got exposed to those when we go to the jiu-jitsu competitions. So we would go to like the IBJJF jiu-jitsu competitions, and there would always be a family. They're there competing, but they will bring like a whole carton of these homemade truffles, and they sell them in like, you know, 6 packs or 12 packs, and they sell out every time. And they're just absolutely amazing. They're not super sweet. They're kind of like this perfect balance of like sweetness and like not sweet, but it's really good. I enjoy them.
Yeah, they take condensed milk.
Yep.
And they use like maybe a little bit of like regular milk and a little sugar, and they do some cocoa powder.
Yeah, they do they have like a tres leches version where it's
Yeah.
like all like the
Caramel. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're good,
Pretty
man.
good. It ain't bad. They're kind of banging.
Little
Not gonna
diabetes,
lie. Not gonna lie, them truffles are banging.
Yep.
But anyway, getting back to let's just say the beans and bullets here is that, again, people have this issue with immigration. And again, there's always this nuance that you have to apply to the situation. And that's all we're trying to apply here is nuance. Like, you always hear people say that America was built on immigrants, by immigrants. I mean, that's true. Europeans weren't originally from here, right? They came here. Sure, Europeans were maybe, let's just say, the first to come here, but it was a long line of people who eventually made this place their home and all contributed something of their own accord. And of course, America's history is very unique too, in that, we have the whole slavery thing, and we were founded as a country at a time when slavery was a common practice in the world.
Ooh, very prolific,
and not just here, but everywhere. Okay. And it is worth noting that we were one of the first countries to abolish the concept of slavery. Early on, we were early abolisher of slavery, and slavery continued around the world in many, many places.
Yeah, I just mentioned my grandmother. She was a comfort woman for Japan. So like they took her from Korea to Japan, and that was not a willingful move.
Right.
So it happens. It's all around the world. I think that you're right. America did abolish slavery much sooner than a lot of other countries did. It doesn't change the fact that it happened, but at the same time, America was built and the saying, before I'm going to preface this, the saying is that America was built on the backs of immigrants. And I don't find that to be completely true. I think there was a lot of buy-in from everybody, really. Because, I mean, think about it. At that time, everybody, for the most part, was immigrants. You had like the big Irish population, Scottish population.
A lot of Irish came in.
1.5. So the Transcontinental Railroad in California, 90% of their workforce. Look it up. 90% of the Transcontinental or Pacific Railways building the Transcontinental Railroad, 90% were Chinese immigrants.
And a lot of those people stayed in the gold rush too. They were there to, deal with, they were trying to
that's why
get gold and all that too.
Right now, California has the highest population of Chinese people. I think it's like 1.5% of current California population is 1.5%.
Which that's Chinese. A lot of people because California has a lot of people.
Yeah,
in
it's
California.
Like over 4 million people.
Right.
So, and that all came from all the way back in like the early 1900s, 1800s when they were building the railroad out to connect the east and west railroads. So really, at that point in time, everybody was immigrants. So, with that being said, what is it at now currently? So why are people even having this argument? Why are people so against immigration? Because we've been talking about stuff in the past, right? Oh, like 1800s, 1900s.
Yeah.
Well, early 1900s.
Yeah, we can look at the bull in the room now.
So now we're at, okay, it's 2025.
Right.
Why
are people so upset about it?
Why are people up in arms about immigration now?
Well, Joe Biden's policies were certainly not helpful. He let in more illegal immigrants than any president in history. And we had more people come through in that period of time than have ever come in a time frame that short, probably in American history, period. So
it was brutal.
He created a very disastrous situation by his lax border policies. Now, one can argue any way they want, but at the end of the day, we've seen some definite negative connotations with this just open border policy that the Democrats seem to have during Joe Biden administration. And we've seen the Venezuelan gang members that took over the apartment building in Colorado. We've seen murders, rapes, car wrecks, drug trafficking, human trafficking, flesh trafficking, sex trafficking, you name it. Every sin that you could possibly imagine. I believe I saw in the headlines that some 90 to 110 Iranian people were detained over the last week or so. A few of them were snipers in the Iranian military.
Yeah, I read that as well.
And they had mentioned that Iran had made the threat that there were some potential sleeper cells in the United States. And honestly, I'm going to probably say something that's going to make some people angry, but the truth is you have to say this because it's just the truth, right? There's not a country on this planet that doesn't have sleeper cells here. Okay, look at all the Chinese buying up the farmland close to military bases.
Yeah, all around military bases.
And that seems rather odd to me. Okay, are they buying the land near the military bases so that they can stage drone attacks? Are they buying land near military bases so they can tunnel under the base and sneak in and obtain secrets? Who knows? Who freaking knows? But the truth is, that should not make the State Department comfortable. It shouldn't make anyone comfortable for that to happen. Is that to say that the Israelis don't have sleeper cells here? You better believe they do. They probably have hundreds, probably in every city, probably with the blessings of our very own government.
Oh, yeah.
Don't think for 1 second there's not 100 Mossad people within 150 miles of you at any one given time. Probably are. So to say is that this Iranian threat of sleeper cells, is it unique to Iran? No, it's not. Every country, if they're smart, are going to have some people operating within the country. That's how spy games work. The war of information, the discomfort and misinformation of war. Like, war is misinformation. War is how well you can lie, how well you can deceive, how well you can destroy. To simply say that war is simply or it's way too simplistic to say that war is, one man versus another with a gun and whoever wins. It's not quite that simple. War is about who controls the information, who can deceive the other person, who can make them, it's a game of chess. And as much as I hate to use that stereotype, because I know chess is used as a stereotype to describe the fog of war. But the reality is any country who, values who they are. And I'm not saying that we should just allow Iranian people to walk across the border. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that any country worth their salt has got some people here with eyeballs. And we do too. If you think for 1 second we don't have Americans everywhere, keeping an eye on things from behind the shadows, right? Whether it's the CIA, whether it's probably the CIA, the CIA is kind of our eyeballs, Someone dressed in plain clothes can just go wherever, live wherever, have a fake, ID, an alias, and blend in and just observe, and that's okay. Are there many people from all different countries that aren't here in that capacity? They've probably seen you at some point. They've seen me at some point. They've reported on something. Is simply lending an eye and just seeing what's going on, is that harmful? Well, depending on what they see, it could be. But can you really blame someone? I mean,
well, I think
that's protecting your own sovereignty in a way to gather information.
I think that's a great point.
Not saying I condone it.
Well, a lot of people think like that, and they're also thinking, well, a lot of these immigrants are, while they come through Mexico, they're not necessarily from Mexico. So you have, and this actually, when I dug into it, blew me away. So you're seeing a large number of Africans. You're seeing a large number of Indians, like not American Indians, like Indians from India, coming in through Mexico, using the Mexican border, the southern
Mexico
border.
is simply a corridor
of
travel.
Now, you also have a lot of immigrants from other countries that are claiming asylum from whether it's a government asylum or religious persecution or whatever it may be. And I think the biggest issue that I've seen with lawmakers are that
coffee?
I'm good. The biggest thing is that the way that asylum works is you're supposed to stop at the closest country that it will give you safe harbor. Will keep you safe.
It's not free enterprise to choose where you want to go.
Right. You don't get to choose where your asylum is. It's just that to get out of the danger zone to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at Central America as a whole, I mean, if you're coming from El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, you have to go through Guatemala, you have to go through Belize, you have to go through Mexico. Mexico is big, man. Everybody, I know people don't consider Mexico being like a huge country. That is a long country, man. Like that is a long trek. A lot of cartel work too. So I mean,
right, a lot of money has to change hands to get you there.
But here's the thing: a lot of money does change hands to get them into the U.S. So it's not that necessarily money is the issue, because if they have enough money to get from their home country into the U.S., they have enough money to make a new life wherever they may want that's still safe. That was my biggest gripe, is that you can't use that as an excuse to say, hey, I want to request asylum in America. Like you don't get to do that. You get
right.
So
I will say that if I lived somewhere, and maybe this is hard for me to say because I've lived in America my whole life, and I think that there is a certain amount of laurels that we rest on as Americans. If you're a 5th, 6th, 7th generation American, you've been here forever, this is all you've ever known, it's easy to just kind of, will upon the silver spoon mentality of resting on your laurels and never knowing what the outside is like, and having this sort of cut off view of the world. And, a lot of Americans who fit into that category, they're very ignorant of things that have gone on in the world. They're ignorant of world history. They're ignorant of other world cultures in the world. And some would say that in itself is kind of a superpower, in that if you can insulate yourself in such a way that you don't even care what's going on in the rest of the world, then I would say that's a pretty successful country. If you can buy your gun and, have your freedom and come and go as you please and, survive well, but not just survive, but thrive. If you're in that category, one could understand why someone would want to come here. Well, I mean, obviously this place is amazing. I've had the privilege and luck of being born here and living here for 40 years. I mean, I've been here all this time. I love it. I love America. So with that being said, if I live somewhere else, would I want to come to America? You're dang right I'd want to come to America. You know what I mean? Especially, while we are very ignorant of other cultures around the world generally, I'm not saying all Americans are ignorant to other people's cultures. I try to consider myself to be a pretty cultured person. Like I try to, really understand where other people are coming from and try to understand the nuance of people that aren't like me. And I know that's not a trait that's generally associated with right-wing people, because they're quick to judge. They're quick to go, well, but me, and I get that. But is that to say that, when it comes to understanding cultures from around the world, that, they don't deal with the same thing, that other people, come here and assimilate to our culture, they look at our culture and they go, wow, man, like I think about the way Japanese people perceive Americans, the cowboy, and like cigarettes and Westerns and revolvers, like. And, it's funny because my girlfriend actually speaks fluent Japanese. She speaks very good Japanese. She won a Japanese speech contest. And it's crazy.
Well, Brazil has the largest population of Japanese outside of Japan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where she's from, she was telling me there's a lot of Japanese that go there. But the point I'm making is that when it comes to, different cultures coming here, they have a certain view of Americans that it may be stereotypical, it may be true, it may not be true, but they always seem to know about us, and we sometimes don't always seem to know about them. And I find that to be interesting, how, the American culture, whether people like it or not, whether it's a positive attribute or a negative attribute, it's like the whole world loves and respects American culture. Even if it's the bad parts of the culture, right? Like you got people around the world that love that rap culture and the murder culture and like that whole thug culture. But then you got people who love the, right wing trad wife, uber Christian culture, or, there's so many different little mixing pots within America that you can kind of choose somewhere to go. It's like choosing your own adventure. Like, well, land in Pennsylvania, you got the Pennsylvania Dutch, land in Georgia, you got rednecks.
Yep.
land in Florida, you got rednecks.
Yeah,
it's
like worse rednecks.
Yeah, right. I mean, so there is so much diversity in America that there really is somewhere kind of for everybody. And as much as, I don't want to sound like a person who's like, oh, open the borders and just let everybody in. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that culturally, who we are is so diverse that it appeals to people all around the world. People, I think, love and respect American culture for that reason, because our culture is essentially a byproduct of our acceptance of other people's cultures. And people tend to forget that. And I think especially a lot of people on the right don't tend to respect that as much when they say, well, throw all the immigrants out. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? I don't think you really believe that.
Yeah, and I agree.
Now, MS-13, a gang member, a cartel person who's murdering people, yeah, get their asses out of here. But do you really believe that? Do you really believe that the little lady who's been cleaning hotel rooms for 25 years, who's illegal, do you really want her kicked out of your country? Do you look yourself in the mirror, ask you that? Do you really want to kick her out?
Yeah, not abuela, not little abuela. She's nice little old lady.
I mean, there's going to be some people who don't agree with me on that, and that's fine. They don't have to agree, but I just think it's absurd. If someone's been contributing to society, working hard, doing something, okay, yeah, they don't have a legal status, but if they've been here for 25 years and they ain't hurt a soul, who are they really hurting?
So it's always a hard thing to do. I would imagine there has to be in the future that, they're saying, oh, we're gonna, what is that term when they give everybody
amnesty?
They're going to, yes, sorry, I had a brain fart.
It's okay.
They're going to provide amnesty. I think there is going to have to be a way for them to provide that to someone. And to your point, if you've been here for 25 years, you never caused trouble, maybe it could fall under something like common law. Like, if you're not married in America, for those of you that are outside of America, if you live with somebody, a significant other, and you're not married, but you might live with them for 6 years, your common law marriage is what that's referred to. So you still get the benefits and all of the laws still apply to you because you've lived that way for a certain amount of time. It could be very similar to what they provide to abuela that's been working here for 25 years that didn't cause any trouble, that just, she pays her taxes on a tax ID number, and she, does what she does. Maybe say, hey, we're going to do that common law citizenship or common law green card or something.
Even if she doesn't pay taxes. I mean, the truth is, does she make enough money cleaning hotel rooms that the amount of money in taxes that she hasn't paid offsets in some negative way the contributions that she's made? Okay, so someone can say, well, what contributions, Eric? Cleaning hotel rooms? Yeah, clean hotel rooms, because you don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's a sucky job.
You don't want to do it. So I don't see very many American women lining up to clean hotel rooms. Now, I'm not saying that's not true, because it is. There are American women that do it. But come on, there are certain jobs that Americans simply don't want to do. Let's just, and whether it's from them being spoiled, or being entitled, or being afraid of work. The point is that if they want to do the dang job, let them do the job. I mean, there's people working farms. I think I read somewhere that 80% of privately owned farm labor, legal immigrants.
Well, that's why I think Trump just about faced on that bill in California.
They had a bunch of the freaking farmer lobbyists come to them and go, look, buddy, I know you think you got this going on, but I don't think you realize just how many people.
There ain't going to be enough food to supply America.
So, you be careful what you wish for. I mean, again, what I say is that in the context of today's show, it's all about nuance. It's all about understanding that there is some middle ground, and that middle ground may not be comfortable for people to approach. Mm-hmm. Instead of a middle ground, it becomes a no man's land full of mines and barbed wire and death and bodies. It's just, they're so afraid to step foot in there and even have a talk, instead of having a little bit of a peace for a moment.
It's hard,
and that's the issue. There's so much strife within society. Everyone gets in their camps and they want to become so tribalistic with their views that they can't accept being wrong. They can't accept new ideas.
It's hard to use discretion on something like this because it can be twisted and turned to one or the other's advantage. And one side might say, well, you said it was okay for 25-year-old or 25-year-long, lawbreaker to stay in the country. What's the difference between this and this person that just crossed the border? And then, I get it. Like it is the same, but it's not the same. And
the optics are the same.
It's like if somebody says, hey, what's the difference between stealing one thing and stealing another? Like if you're really hungry, you steal food, but then you go and you steal something that you don't really need. Like they're both stealing.
Someone would say, well, by that argument, Eric, then the person who's got face tattoos and hand tattoos and is a committed multiple murders and just has gotten away with it for the last 25 years, that they should get amnesty too.
It's like these are
two different people. Yeah. These are two different people. One that's actively harming society, actively contributing to very negative things such as fentanyl crossing the border, which kills hundreds of thousands, has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans over the last decade.
Yeah,
it started coming in. I mean, fentanyl is a very deadly drug. So you talk a fentanyl dealer who brings a whole backpack of fentanyl across the border, which one backpack of fentanyl can kill like a whole city.
Easily.
Right. So you're talking a very powerful drug that even one mule can bring enough, oh my God, to have disastrous consequences. So you're saying the person that's bringing that destructive poison in the country is the same person as the little old lady who's been cleaning hotel rooms for 20 years. I'm not going to buy that. That is not the same person. This is not the same person.
I agree.
These people on the right, and look, I'm on the right. So some of my own colleagues, some of the people that I agree with on many, many things, say that those two people should be treated the same. And I disagree. I don't think they should.
Because you have common sense.
Right. You have to understand that. Look, there's a pecking order. There's a pecking order in life. And, if you're going to accept certain comforts and luxuries living a certain way, right, then you're going to have to sometimes turn your eye to some things that technically might be illegal.
Yeah. It's called discretion.
It's called discretion.
That's what
it's called freaking discretion.
As much as people say you have to be fair and do things by the book, like you always use discretion in everything.
There's always some lubricity
Yep.
in, how hard stance you're going to be on a certain issue. I think that's the truth of how people view certain topics that they might disagree with others on. I think online they're going to take this sort of poisonous, crazy, direct stance on something. And then they're just going to have this line in the sand sort of stance. But I think you get that same person in a room like you and I are right now, and you really spend some time picking apart and talking about the issue at hand. I think a lot of people do, tend to have a little bit more fluid view of certain issues at hand.
I mean, we've seen it firsthand.
They're just afraid to admit it online because they don't want to get accused of being, oh, you're this, you're that. You get called every name in the book if you simply just try to apply some nuance to the situation.
Or the opposite. They are very hardline stance on one specific thing, and they don't want to agree that maybe there is some lubricity or some discretion to be had because they don't want to look like they're eroding their own argument. Yeah. So you see it both ways, and I've run into the latter more often than not. Like you see guys that just like, nope, this is what I said. This was my statement. I'm sticking to it. You get them away from the cameras, or you get them away from everybody else, and they're like, no, I'm a little bit more down to earth. This is how I really feel, and I'm just like, man, that's completely different than what your persona is.
I can't tell you how many times I've had discussions with people where the cameras aren't running and it's like, wow, this person is completely different.
Yeah. They seem like a normal person. But
yeah, it's wild, and it's so funny that like so many people will accuse me, for instance. And again, I don't ever want to make anything about me, but I'm just going to mention this because it's about me in this particular situation. I'm sure you've ran into this type of situation as well in life, is that so many people have accused me of, well, Eric, you just have this very narrow view of society based on the fact that you like guns, and that's it. That everything is strictly under the lens of the Second Amendment and nothing more, and that your personality is null and void unless it has something to do with the Second Amendment. Oh, well, Eric, I'm only going to listen to you on things that involve the Second Amendment, and everything else you're just completely batshit crazy on.
Yep.
That's not true, right? My views, everyone thinks because of what I've done for a living for the last 16 years, because I'm so involved with guns, that like guns is all I care about. And oh my God, if you could be a fly on the wall in my life every day, you would actually find that it could be nothing further than the truth. Like, I'm such a freaking eccentric person. Like, dude, I watch weird ass like B movies of like random, old school movies. Like, I love old horror films. Like, I love jazz music. I love freaking, I play music at a high level. I understand music theory. I can have a high level discussion about music theory. Like, I love fishing. I love hunting. I love being outdoors. I mean, I obviously love those redneck things, but I'm also like a cultured person that, I'll go to a museum, like everyone has this narrow window of thinking that, well, a gun owner is just some moron in the woods with overalls. It's like, that seems to be this stereotypical image that is
straw
painted,
hat,
of gun owners. And it's so funny that I get thrown into that all the time. And they go, well, you have your expertly crafted narrow window of expertise and you know nothing about anything else. And that's just so far from the truth. Like, they have no idea who I really am.
It's true, because,
and that can be a superpower, but it can also, like, to kind of really tie in this whole show today, it's like, people are so quick to just be very judgmental about someone in some narrowly focused way that it's just completely unrealistic.
It's true. And I mean, guys, if you were ever in the same room with Eric and I and we're hanging out, we don't even talk about guns. It never comes up. It's always about something else other than guns.
Anything but guns.
Anything but guns, and it's just wild, because I completely understand what you're saying.
I love firearms. Don't think for one second. Look, I'm a hardcore freaking gun guy. If I ever ran for office, you ain't got to worry about me going and buying some freaking AR off the rack with no sights on it and going, see, I own an AR. No, I'm going to have my beat up freaking Daniel Defense or my beat up Scar, like with crap all over it. Like, my guns, are being used. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there ain't going to be no doubt about my stuff's right, But this is so crazy how people, again, is like, I know we've talked in other shows about it, Matt. Like, people are so freaking tribal and they're so incendiary in their views. And I just, if I could just impart any knowledge or wisdom or advice or just have any wishes about society, it would just be that people just chill the hell out and just apply some damn nuance to everything. Don't be so freaking stuck up.
Yeah, don't be a-holes.
Yeah, nobody likes that person.
Nope, we don't want to be around you.
You want to be liked, but it's okay to be stern in your views and be solidified in your views, but no one likes a jerk either. You got to be fun to be around.
Well, you can always tell the people that didn't get a lot of attention growing up because they say the most wild, off the wall stuff just to get a reaction, and you're like, really?
And it's not merited. Like, it's just, now I say some off the wall stuff. Okay. I say some off the wall stuff, but I'm not doing it for attention. Look, everyone thinks that I light a dumpster fire on Twitter and that I'm doing it to elicit some reaction or that I'm doing it for views or clicks. I don't care. I think that's why those posts do well, because I don't care. Yep. I really don't. And I'm going to say what I want to say, and I'm going to be unique in my views, and I'm going to think like an individual. I'm not going to toe the party line. That's so boring. Like, I can't stand conformity. Like, I'm a nonconformist. I don't like the normie mentality. Like, I always want to think, I want to be on the fringe. I don't ever want to be in the pen with all the cows.
Like, speaking of like the whole like toe the party line, that thing with like Massey and Trump going on right now, dude. Oh my God.
It's wild, man. They've been throwing punches. This morning I actually saw, so the time that we're filming this podcast, by the way, this is July 1st. So this won't drop till the 7th, but this morning I noticed that Elon had tweeted out to Massey that he's going to be contributing to his campaign. So it looks like Elon Musk is going to be throwing some more bucks in the hat for Massey.
And he's doing that just to get
he's doing that just to get back at Trump. You know what? I don't care how we get the victory, because AIPAC spent a lot of money running a lot of negative ads against Massey here lately. So it's going to be interesting to see the warbucks come from Musk.
I'm a fan of Massey, dude. I like him. I like Rand Paul. I think they both were very non-traditional politicians.
They're rhinos, but in the right way.
Yeah.
Like, we need more people like them in the Republican Party to balance out the Republican
they're
Party.
More
Make
libertarian.
them actually constitutional.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not someone is Republican or Democrat, you know, if they honor the Constitution, if they honor who we are as people, I can get behind them. Now, I'd probably never vote for a Democrat. It'd have to be one charming Democrat. Let's put it that way. But I'd never vote for a Democrat. But I expect the people that are in power, they're Democrats, should be able to come across the aisle and look at things constitutionally. It's okay to have a two-party system if both the parties actually care about America and our rights and the Constitution. But that's not the case. There's only a small handful of people on the Hill that are actually principled people. And I guess we'll just end today's show. I know we didn't really want to go on this rabbit hole. We're kind of getting towards the end of today's show, but we'll leave this with this final thought about Massey. If they're throwing so much mud at Massey, I think what that really tells us is that they know, whether it's because of AI and machine learning and you know, trust me, they know what people are thinking. I think a lot more people think like Massey than you think, than the average person thinks.
I would agree.
I think a lot of people think like him. They're like, why the hell are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Why does this bill have to be one giant bill of crap? Why can't we vote on each individual item separately so that we know where everybody stands?
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just going to have a giant swamp full of snakes, and you never know who's a snake and who isn't.
It's true.
Yeah. So I wish the best to Massey. I mean, I think he's a very principled person. I know Massey. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with him. I've drank bourbon with Massey. He's a great guy. He is the most down-to-earth politician you will ever meet. And I tell you what, he is a salt-of-the-earth guy. I support him.
Because he didn't ever intend to actually be a politician.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's what's so crazy about it. But
it was a joke. It was a prank that failed.
Massey has had a rough couple of years, man. It's been rough on him. You know, he lost his wife.
Yep.
And I can only imagine what's going through his head. Now he feels like all these people turning their back on him. And the president, I mean, not that Massey gives a crap what Trump thinks, but you got your own president turning their back on you. It's going to affect a man in a certain way.
But he's always been.
He's in a dark place, but I think that he's also in a place where he really feels empowered that he's doing the right thing.
Well, that's the thing, that he knows like what he's saying is the truth. Like, he brings receipts, man. Like, that's what he's always been good about, that bringing receipts, saying, hey, this is what it is. Small government. We're spending this. We're losing this much money. It's unsustainable. Like, it is what it is.
I know. God bless him. I mean, you know, I got to get Massey back on the channel. It's been a while since I've had him, you know, in for a talk, and I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to have him in person, but we've done some stuff over StreamYard.
Yeah.
You know, we might have to get Massey back on the channel and check in with him, see how, you know, do a little bro check, make sure things are good.
Make sure everything's good.
Yeah, but I think we hit the nail on the head pretty good on today's show. You know, I really wanted to, like, who are the immigrants? I mean, we all are, aren't we?
Yeah.
We all came from somewhere. We all came from somewhere. So I like to think of America as like the bastion of redheaded stepchildren. Like, we're the place where all the people who don't fit in with society go. And if you think about it in that way, I think it becomes much more sensible and pragmatic.
Yep.
We are where the people from around the world who don't fit in with society go to figure out who their people are. And I think that's the best way. That's my view of it. That's how I view American culture. We are the misfits. We are the rebels and misfits, and we are the people that don't belong anywhere.
And we do it freely.
And we do it well. Don't lose sight of that. Okay? No matter what you hear on all of these social media platforms, use your damn brain. You know, think for a second what's really going on. I think you'll see your views are a lot more fluid than you probably think they are. Well, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Remember, guys, we drop an episode every Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, if I remember to actually turn the show on. I usually upload the show. Lisa sends it to me a couple of days in advance. Big thanks to Lisa for editing the show. And also, you know, she takes care of the thumbnails. my girlfriend Bruna takes care of all the thumbnails on all of our other videos. So some of you have commented about some of the clever thumbnails. So that's the girls that handle that. So big thanks to them. But Lisa sends me over the show. I upload it, and then it's supposed to go live at 9 o'clock. Sometimes I forget. I apologize. But typically, if you're lucky, it'll go live at 9 o'clock Monday Eastern Standard Time in the morning. You can also follow us on all the different places where you find your podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. You can download the show. You can also obviously watch this podcast in video form over on my YouTube channel, Iraq Veteran 8888. So, Matt, any final thoughts?
No, I think we did a great job, had a good conversation about, immigration, where it started, why it started, where it is now. Why people
did you bring some kimchi today?
No, I didn't.
You didn't bring any homemade kimchi?
No,
so you mean I can't appropriate your culture, Matt?
Oh man, you can't appropriate.
Isn't that what we do?
No. I brought a samurai sword though.
So is Caucasian kimchi?
Caucasian
is it different?
kimchi.
Is it not as spicy?
They actually do have a white kimchi. It's like
really?
It's white. It has
it's
no
like
spice
basic,
on.
Bland kimchi.
It's more like a pickle. It actually tastes very good. It's very popular.
Is it
popular? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, but just to be clear, I don't want the Caucasian kimchi. No. I want the straight up burn your butthole out kimchi.
I got
the real spicy.
I'll
stuff.
bring it down.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Adios, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Life, Liberty, and Pursuit. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. You can support us over on Ballistic Ink by picking yourself up some merch. And remember, guys, danger is freedom. Have a good one.